Here came Cody Rhodes, and the fans in Boston were booing the shit out of him. And he said, I hear you. I hear you. And then he also said, I hear old managers shouting at clouds. Brian, you've known me now for over 25 years. Have you ever heard me yell at a cloud?
I have not witnessed that in person, no.
No. Because I'm not mad at the clouds. Because the clouds are where they're supposed to be, doing what they're supposed to do. So I'm not mad at them. I'm yelling at the wrestlers because the wrestlers in AEW are not where they're supposed to be and they're not doing what they're supposed to do. So that's why I yell at them. I don't know whether Cody really took offense with the things that I said or whether he got that line in to placate Brandy. I'm sure.
You know he workshopped that line. You just know he tried different variations of it. I'm not talking about those 80s managers with glasses and tennis. Nah, that won't work. You know he workshopped it and talked to Arn and talked to Tony and talked to everyone he could until he finally felt like he had something that worked.
I think Brandy said, hey, knock Cornette, because he said mean things about me. But anyway, the point is, this promo, he spent the entire promo, he's not going to take the easy way out. What he was doing here was trying to somehow tell the fans that he knows they're booing him and he's going to address the root reasons why, and he's trying to talk him out of it by kind of knocking himself and saying that his brother's more talented and he couldn't live up to his dad and blah, blah, blah. I wrote, he's talking in circles. You wouldn't, unless you live your life studying every bit of backstage news about AEW and why the fans are booing Cody and what all is going on, you would have had no idea what he was talking about. It was another artistic rendition of a promo. It was I said to you before we went on the air, I said the head of the nail could have had nitroglycerin on it and he would have been safe because he beat all around it, but he never hit the nail on the head. And then finally he said, I will not turn. So now he's talking on the wrestling program to the fans using smart terminology, saying that he will not be a phony bad guy. So by extension of this, that means he's now a phony good guy. I won't turn and play another part. So I'll just play the part that I'm playing now. He apologized to everybody for going Hollywood. And he apologized to a bunch and shook Arn's hand and blah, blah, blah. But this is all about telling everybody I'm a fake wrestler playing a part. The reality show. The I will not turn. The whole 9 yards is not only just exposing the fourth wall, but it's bulldozing it down and just talking smart to everybody. And if that's phony, everything else is phony too. And I'm just gobsmacked that, you know what, I'm not going to take the easy way out. Are you fucking ribbon? It's not easy being a heel. Healing ain't easy. But when the people hate your guts and they're booing you, why the fuck would you not want to do that? We switch Roman Reigns for 5 years before they did. Now look at him, right? So why would you not want to be? He could draw money as a heel because the people are predisposed not to like him, just like you said. Him and his social climbing wife, if they backstabbed Arn Anderson and carried him out on a stretcher and then got into something with CM Punk, that would draw pay-per-view money. They might actually have a heel that has legitimate heat instead of one that's cheered out of the building for beating up one of their top baby faces. What did you think of this interview, Mr. Last?
It was preposterous. I mean, again, you know this is a guy that rehearses everything he says, overthinks everything he says. So you know this was a line, the one about you, and this whole thing that was rehearsed and thought about. I'm sure he's been trying to come up with a way to justify. I get it. I like that. The commiserating, Cody. I get why you hate me. Because I went Hollywood. You didn't go Hollywood. You went to fucking Atlanta. You didn't go Hollywood. You were yourself, and it was captured on film. That's where you went. And I think everyone has seen everyone else's commitment. You could say what you want about the Bucks and Omega, and we all certainly have problems with them. They're committed to AEW. They're there. They're committed to being what they tried to be in Ring of Honor and New Japan and everything else. Cody comes across to fans, and quite frankly, to wrestlers in that locker room, as someone who looks at wrestling as a means to an end. Someone who, his heart was never in wrestling. I don't care what he says in any of these promos. He wanted to be an actor. He wanted to be a celebrity. And it's more about that. And now he's going to come back, and if they truly do this, where they force him to stay a babyface while he's being booed everywhere, which is interesting considering he's the guy who said that we're not going to go with those boring old tropes like heels and babyfaces, then what do you have? Then what is Cody's true value there? Because quite frankly, right now in AEW, if you took Cody and Brandy out of the picture, they don't lose any viewers. They don't lose any fans. Nothing. This benefits Cody more than them.
You know why? Because if you're not a babyface and you're not a heel, you know what you are? You're bleh. You're nothing. If people do not have a strong like or a strong dislike for you, one or the other, then you are useless in the wrestling business. That's why there are baby faces and heels, and that's why, try as they want, all these gloriosity fucking seeking social climbers who think that we've moved past baby faces and heels. No, we haven't. And we never will. The human race will never move past baby faces and heels. Because you want to see an asshole get the shit kicked out of him, and you want to see somebody you like do the kicking of the shit. And that's it.
And as far as he won't turn and he's not going to do this and that, you got to remember, the Young Bucks Omega fans, who were the original base of AEW, supported Cody because he aligned himself with them. And without that, they wouldn't have. And now there's no reason to cheer Cody. He's a babyface without any reason to be likable. Because he doesn't come across as likable. You like Arn? You don't like Cody. And now he's going to refuse to be a heel. It's very similar. I mean, he has a lot of traits of his dad. I hate to say it. His worst traits.
Yeah.
A lot of Dusty's worst traits you see in Cody. And he's going to keep being booed. And they took all the... It seemed like by the end of this, the focus was on Pac, which I was okay with.
Well, after the interview was over with, or at least Cody's portion of the interview, suddenly here comes Andre Oleo. And he's coming down the aisle. And he mumbled his way to the ring with the microphone. Have you noticed he sounds like Hans Conried in a 60s TV sitcom?
I haven't noticed.
Just and he's got the assistant with him who never does anything or says anything. And now his assistant is still carrying the laptop, but is wearing a neck brace because he got dropped on his head last week. So all of the stooges and assistants are just there for pure comedy. And Andre gets in the ring and tells Cody he's going to make him his, I swear to God, little beach. And as soon as he said little beach, or Lido Beach, again with a blackout, the lights go off again. And the lights come back on, and Malachi Black is in the ring, and he mists Cody, and he misses Cody. He misses with the mist. The mist missed. Again. It's black mist. You can see it on the guy's face. And you can see when it's not on the guy's face. And you can see Cody at the end of he knew at the end of this segment, he's trying to sell his face, but he could see that there was no mist on his face. And the heels start working over Cody and Arn, and here comes Pac and saves him and clears the ring or whatever. But now do we have Pac and Cody against Malachi Black and Andre Oleo? That'll be a real rip snorter.
It seems like that, and I thought Pac was great here. That shot of him at the end, just giving the middle finger. He has the best facial expressions. He looks like a little bastard. He is fantastic.
He's ripped. I don't know why he tries to come off the top rope as much as with a physique like that. His work seems good. The only flaw in his game is every time he goes to the top rope and tries to do one of those quadruple flipping things off the top, he's up there forever trying to get his balance. But as far as his physique, his facials, he's got the accent. He does a pretty good promo. He looks like a badass. If he didn't try to constantly do flips and flying shit, you could buy this guy as a real ass kicker. And I don't like the way he's been booked, but that's a blanket statement that you could make about this entire company and everybody in it. But again, he was a babyface. He was a heel. I know the pandemic and he's foreign, so he was here and he was gone. But even when he was around regularly, since they've started using him, you couldn't keep track. 1 week he's wrestling a heel, 1 week he's wrestling a babyface, or vice versa. It's impossible to determine. He was part of a group called Death Triangle, who then became babyfaces. So my guy, in the Bermuda Triangle has replaced Walt Disney World as a fun vacation family spot. But yeah, there's talent. There's talent in a lot of these guys underneath there somewhere.
Hey, if I could say just a couple more things about the Cody promo.
I wish you would.
Because I saw a couple people compare it to Cena. How, Cena would get booed even though he was the babyface. It's not a fair comparison because Cena was a fucking star.
Yeah.
Much bigger than Cody. And he meant much more to that company than Cody means to AEW. Cody risks being Jeff Jarrett in TNA to every wrestling fan who wasn't in Nashville in that building. Where he may not be the world champion or pushes the world champion, but he's being pushed and used in a way that fans don't accept. So the next few months will be very, very interesting to see how this all plays out. And as far as, managers who yell at clouds, if we're measuring things based on clouds, then I'd like to know how many clouds you're yelling at, because more people will listen to this than watch your stupid reality show, buddy. So suck on that.
I didn't want to be the one to mention the disparity in some of those numbers, but anyway.
Just some guy yelling at clouds like no one's listening. More people will hear this right here than watched any episode of your show, Cody. Just remember that.
I will say one, and you say Jeff Jarrett and TNA. Again, I have got to just take issue with a lot of people say, well, why was Jeff pushing himself? Because he was just,
I know why he was.
Well, especially in the early days of TNA. And honestly, through the time that they picked up Kurt Angle and a few of those acquisitions, Jeff Jarrett was the best worker in the company. The best in-ring worker. He knew he wasn't going to hold himself up. He knew he wasn't going to walk out on himself. He knew he wasn't going to refuse to do jobs to other people to himself. He was the best in-ring worker and the most experienced, and he had a name from national television. So yes, he's going to push himself over especially some of the early TNA names. But then when Sting and Kurt Angle and et cetera, came in, then you saw him back up and work with to this day, the best TNA match that I ever saw was Jeff Jarrett versus Kurt Angle. And I believe, oh, God damn it was a location pay-per-view, and I never can remember. Was it the one we did in Charlotte? I think it was. It wasn't Atlanta, it was Charlotte. Samoa Joe and Angle was the best drawing pay-per-view they ever did, and it also was a very memorable match, but the best just regular pro wrestling match that I ever saw in TNA was Jeff Jarrett and Kurt Angle. And so, yeah, he pushed himself, but there's reasons for that in a company of that size. With Dusty and Crockett in the 80s, it was a little more egregious. The talent was so deep, and there were so many. And he had already had his run, and it could have been curtailed a little bit sooner. But, Jeff, I don't blame him for what he did in TNA. Anyway.
Well, I will, but...
You can. Yeah. And that way we've got it all covered.
That's right.